I'm Brad.
I'm Scott.
This is Curiosity.
And we are here with Alana Oates from Llani. Welcome to town. This is super exciting.
I'm so excited to be here.
Thrilled to have you here. It's going to be a lot of fun. We're looking forward to this. Tell us a little bit about kind of Llani and like what's happening and what you're working on so we can kind of establish that foundation and then we can kind of...
Sure. So Llani is a brand of globally inspired shoes and accessories. I launched in 2016 with the idea of shoes that felt like home. So we were doing elevated house slippers. I had previously been a shoe designer. I was the shoe designer for Anthropologie for quite a few years. And then I went out to San Francisco to launch the women's shoe line for Old Navy. And I kind of knew that after those 2 stints in like corporate design that I really just wanted to start my own thing. So, I just felt like I needed some experience under my belt, but I launched the brand. I'd always been really connected to India because of my work there previously with the other brands. It was just a place that I loved traveling to and was super inspired by. So I knew that when I did start my own brand, I wanted it to be exclusively produced in India. So that's what we're doing now. And the last 6 years, we have grown the brand. We have shoes, handbags, jewelry, hair accessories. We do one-of-a-kind pieces. And now we are expanding to apparel as well.
Exciting. Really cool. Llani. Why Llani? What's the origin story of the name?
So that is my nickname. My childhood nickname. One of my best girlfriends in the world gave me that nickname growing up.
That's fun. Then I won't mess up between Elena and Alana, which is even better.
Yeah.
Perfect. Great.
It's funny. It was actually like a placeholder name for the brand. Like I had all of these other ideas in mind. And it was just the only one that stuck. Like it didn't really seem right to me in the beginning, but as the brand kind of cultivated and grew, like there was no other name for it.
Love that. That's super cool.
I mean, sticky is so important. Like I think we often forget just being memorable goes a long way. Like sometimes I think we overcomplicate things that are staring us right in the face and are really simple. And your childhood nickname feels so right for a brand. And what a beautiful story.
I think that's really cool because you already have like a deep love and connection to it already.
Exactly. And it's nice because it's not, like a namesake brand. Like I actually always had something personally that I didn't want to have a namesake brand because actually a lot of designers back in the 90s, the 2000s, when people were acquiring brands, they actually like sold their name. They've lost their names. Oh. And there's designers like one of which I actually had the chance to meet a couple weekends ago, Donna Karan. Like she's a great example. She's a household name. Everyone knows her, but she does not own that name anymore.
You said that you met her recently?
Yeah.
Sky and I've talked to her a few times.
Really?
Yeah, because she has a house in Turks and Caicos on a private island called Como Parrot Key. Ooh. And we stayed there on the island and she was there the whole time. I mean, like every day she was just sitting there hanging out.
Incredible.
And so her and I talked off and on. Yeah. I mean, I never was like, oh, you're Donna Karan. Like, hey, that's cool. Tell me your story. I'm gonna have you on our podcast. It was more just like, hey, what's up? How's your day going? Oh, good. How's your day going? Like, oh, I'm, are you using this seat? It was just like basic stuff. And like in the evening, we would just chit chat. So we chit chatted off and on, but she was so cool, so normal. Cool. So it was weird though. Cause I mean, I didn't know who she was, if I'm being honest. Sky's the one that told me. I was talking to her and she's like, babe, that's Donna Karan. I was like, oh. I was like, well, she's really nice. I really like her.
Shoes.
Yeah, like I would love to talk to her more and hear more of her story, but I didn't feel like it was the right time and place. She was like at her home, living her best life. Anyway, but that's cool.
She's so cool. And
so how did you meet her?
I had the same exact experience. She actually has a shop in Sag Harbor. I was doing a pop-up down the street.
Okay.
And someone had mentioned like, oh yeah, I got this from Donna. And I kind of knew that she had a presence. Like her daughter, it's her daughter and her husband have a beautiful, amazing restaurant in town. And then she has a shop attached to that.
Is this in Philadelphia?
No, in Sag Harbor. Sorry.
Okay.
In Sag Harbor.
Where
near
is
the
that?
Hamptons.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Got it.
So I stumbled in one night, after having a glass of wine, and it was like 8:00 at night. And I'm kind of looking around, and there she is enjoying I believe a gin and tonic, or maybe it was just a tonic on the sofa. And
or just a gin.
Yeah, I started trying things on, and it was so funny. I put on one of her sweaters, and it was absolutely gorgeous.
That's
she comes
so cool.
over, she zips it up for me, and I look at the price, and it's $2,100. And I look at her, and I'm like,
my gosh.
And I said, not that I have any business trying on one of your sweaters because I'm a struggling artist myself. And she goes, oh, really? Like, what kind of art? I'm like, well, I have a brand. She goes, that's your first mistake.
That's hilarious.
Some scar tissue there.
Little bit.
That's your first mistake.
Like, we're talking about like design, and I'm just like have this like kind of fundamental question of like what is the process? Like, can we get into a little bit of like when you're at like brands like Urban Outfitters and Anthropologie and Old Navy? Those are like established. It feels like there's like a process that you kind of slot into, totally. And so would love to just kind of explore like what you learned in that environment of getting design out the door, and like what then you've brought with you, but then also what's kind of new and different about kind of the approach.
Absolutely.
And like talk to me like I'm a third grader on this stuff, because like I don't have like just like take us through like the fundamentals of how you make it happen.
So I feel like I'm going to answer your question backwards a little bit, because I think as with any corporation, there's so much process, right?
Sure.
So, and then you realize when you go out on your own and you don't have the team and you kind of have to strip away a lot of the processes, you become really scrappy. So I would say the biggest difference between the corporate process that I had to follow and my process now is that now I'm super scrappy. So I hardly, even though this is a bit disappointing and sometimes I have to remind myself, but I hardly put pen to paper anymore.
Okay.
Now, when I started at Anthropologie and I first got my training, I had a absolutely wonderful mentor. He is an amazing women's shoe designer. He's like a straight dude.
But just totally locked in on
just
like
designs beautiful women's shoes. And he was so humble. He like taught me everything he knew. And so cool. I started as an intern under him. And from the very beginning, he just elevated my voice. Like he wanted, if I designed something, he wanted me to pitch it in a meeting. So the process was very, step by step. You would sketch a couple ideas, first you would create the concept. So for the season, if you're doing, say, a summer collection and it's inspired by the Hawaiian Islands and you want to have, sandals that tie up or some prints or some flowers or something, you kind of pull the concept together. Then I would start sketching a couple ideas.
So you create like a foundation of like a few things that you're trying to
identify your key silhouettes. Do you want a wedge? You're going to have a mule. Do you want closed toe, open toe, kind of balance?
I'm nodding along like I know what's going on here.
And then you design into those ideas, and then you have to show it to leadership. You show it to your team, and you show it to the buyers. You sit down and talk about what needs to be changed, what's going to be the best for the customer.
And is that often like a gut feel kind of thing, or they just kind of look at it and like they know it's good or bad, or are there like technical things
data, they'll say thong sandals or lace-up sandals were selling really well last year. We definitely need to make sure that we hit the girl that loves that sandal, but then we also want ease. We know that our core customer is a busy mom. She's running out the door. She doesn't want to have a fussy shoe. She just wants to slip them on, get out the door. Like, you do really have to think about who your customer is.
It's like the new Skechers ad that just came out of the slip-on shoes.
Oh yes, brilliant!
It is brilliant,
absolutely brilliant.
Yeah, not a brand that I personally wear anymore. I did as a child; they were awesome. But
they're coming up.
I feel like I need to like lean back into some Skechers. There was some function and form there.
This is the time.
This is the moment. This is like we talked about with Banana last night.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
We should
had
talk
a big
about that more.
Banana Republic revelation last night.
We did.
One of my best girlfriends that I went to design school with was at Nike and then Disney.
Yeah.
Now she's at Skechers.
Whoa.
She's bringing.
Maybe she's helped bring this kind of.
Yeah. She mostly does like color. I believe.
That's
and
so cool.
Print direction, but she's incredibly talented. And I think the brand's
maybe if we
watch.
hype Skechers up enough,
Yeah.
maybe they'll like sponsor the show or something.
Maybe they'll give us some shoes at least.
Exactly.
Like,
well, I can give you guys
want
some shoes.
Oh,
they
okay.
won't fit you, but
Okay.
you can give them to your ladies.
Great. I kind of want some of these slip-ons. I mean, Sky and I travel a lot. It would make life really easy.
Sure.
I know, because that's the worst. Everyone wants to wear sneakers in the airport, but no one wants to take the sneakers off and then put them back on.
No.
Well, so I don't know if this is like
Struggle is
appropriate.
real.
I'm like
Do
down
it.
that lane.
Yes.
We're going to talk
The
about
shoe
shoes.
is off.
Like
Yes. What are these?
Jumra.
Interesting.
Just an Amazon find.
Okay.
But
I
a big
mean,
fan of just the slip-on that
Yes.
sort of
Yeah.
kind of looks like has like a little bit of like a wingtip vibe, but like
It's cool. It's a retro.
That is cool.
No, this was a terrible idea to like bring my shoe up here. Like
No,
I am
wow.
like,
We're
shoes
all
on
going to
it.
bring our
I'm
shoes up
actually-
here. I'm going to
I am-
analyze them. We're going to talk about the
Like,
parts of the shoe.
I am-
Okay, good.
I am building on this right now because, so I'm a huge Llani fan, and I am wearing a pair of Llanis right now, Italian inspired and Portugal or Spain made. I should know this. I forgot. It's fine. These shoes are A, some of the most comfortable shoes I've ever put on my feet. B, they have literally traveled the world with me. I have everywhere I go, this is the pair of shoes that I wear when I travel. And they make my soul so happy because, they're nice.
Yeah,
And they
they're very
can
nice.
kind of be worn with a little bit of everything.
You can dress them up, dress them down.
Which is awesome. They can be a
Mhm.
sneaker or they can kind of masquerade as like a dressy or a shoe.
Mm-hmm.
And I have walked, as you do when you're traveling in walkable cities around the world, miles upon miles upon miles upon miles in these shoes. I wish I knew how many hundreds or if not thousands of miles these shoes have been on. And like perfectly intact.
They're holding up.
Not a
'Cause they're
single
leather.
issue. And they've got to be 5 years old.
Leather.
And they're rocking.
Leather
They're not cheap,
is
but they're
important.
phenomenal. Yeah.
Done.
I am in love with this brand.
Yeah.
And it's the only pair I have.
They're very
from-
cool.
This brand from Llani, but I'm kind of tempted to get a
I don't
second
think
pair
anybody
now.
thought it was the only pair of shoes that you own, Brad. But
Definitely
I think-
not.
I think
own
they might.
way too many pairs of shoes. Yeah, I'm super into Taft shoes right now. I think I told you that.
Yes.
That's like my new happy place. I have some floral print from Taft that
Very
are
cool.
so beautiful,
Yeah.
and they're like all like handmade. Like they're gorgeous.
See how important shoes are?
Oh,
They're really important.
actually, I want to ask you a question about this because
Yes.
someone told me this a number of years ago, and I want to litmus test this with an actual expert in the shoe universe. So this is an interesting statement, but this was the statement that was made. Males are very consistently look at shoes almost first on other males before any other like point of connection or interaction.
Okay.
I don't know if it's the same with females, and I don't even know if it's a male-female thing. I have zero idea. But I just thought it was a really interesting statement. So over the years, I have observed these interactions. It's been probably 6-7 years since this statement was said to me. And I have seen oftentimes when two guys meet, you often look down at the shoes
Interesting.
almost immediately. And I've seen this happen quite often.
Do you think there's so much to be said for that? Because I have
Why
not heard
is
this
my
data.
question.
I do not argue with this data. But shoes can be like us, and I think we're kind of coming out of this, but like think about in the 90s, like the sneakers that you wore
Yeah.
were really important.
Yeah.
At least
They were
where I
everything.
came from.
Oh,
like
Girl,
yeah.
they were everything. Like,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
I wanted so bad in junior high the Jordans.
Yeah.
My mom said, no, those things were way too expensive. I'm not
Yeah.
buying
Yeah.
you these. So
I think
she
that's
was,
why my husband got his first job was to buy. Yeah.
So she was
he had
buying
an
me, like,
extensive
the-
sneaker collection.
not Jordans, but like still
The Bobos?
cool. Yeah,
The Bobo
well,
Jordans?
They were still Nikes.
Okay.
And they were still like nice Nikes, but they just weren't the Jordans. She was also afraid that somebody was going to jump me and steal them from me.
There's always
that was,
Yeah.
I think that was her real fear. But y'all, I wanted a pair of Jordans so bad. I also always wanted Jinkos. And my mom wouldn't buy me Jinkos because she didn't like. She
They're
didn't
coming
like
back.
It.
Did
And
you
so-
know this?
No, I didn't.
Yes.
So
You're
instead,
gonna
I got
get
the
a
Tommy
pair.
Hilfiger, which is fine. But like, I got the Tommy Hilfiger. It said that I wanted the Jinkos. I got the Tommies. I wanted the Jordans. I got the other Nikes instead.
Now, do you
And
guys
now
know
I still have a
about
complex.
like the fashion cycle? Like
No, but I want to know.
it swings like a pendulum. So like
We're gonna talk about
The
fashion on this
Jen-
episode.
the
What?
Jenkos were wide and baggy
Yes,
with the
yeah, yeah,
pockets.
yeah.
Then you see in the last couple years,
Uh-huh.
I would say the last 10 years, everything got tight, more
Yeah,
tailored. Now
yeah.
we're going back the other way.
Yeah.
It's all going to be about the slouchy 90s,
See,
baggy.
I'm kind of wondering if I'm going to lean into it though, because
it might just take a couple years, but you will.
I know. And I'm normally not one to trail behind on fashion. Like I'm here for it and I'll push it all day, but I might push it past this and stay with the tailored because I'm 5'8" and baggy clothes just don't look the same on me as they do, I think, on people who have different heights.
I think that there's a medium though. Like I think the more straight leg now.
Okay.
The dad jean, the dad sneakers, even the sneakers.
Yeah,
like you saw that they got back into that like build up chunky, like the Nike Hirachis are back.
And the Air Force, I mean, the Air Force Ones and then just like the Nike Airs. I'm here for those. I have a number of pairs of.
Yeah. And you can't really wear those with skinny tight jeans.
I am here for the Nikes. I rock them with the skinnies.
It's a look.
Yeah.
And is that because like sort of fashion?
I just got judged so hard. This is so,
I'm turning that into a GIF as we move forward. But
you haven't seen them on me yet, Alana. Just wait. I'm gonna wear them later.
I can visualize nearly anything in my head.
Sky does not like.
It's all about
when
proportion.
I wear them together. She doesn't like when I wear them together.
Because she knows design and she knows proportions, and it's all about proportion.
I'm sort of curious, like the pendulum piece. Like, is that because like design and fashion sort of it can be risky, but it's almost like these incremental adjustments. Like people aren't going to go from like fully tight fitted to like full blown Jinko. It's like it sort of like warms up to it. Is that kind of the issue? And then it's like, okay, hey, this is way too baggy now, and it's kind of
there's a trickle down. There's a trickle down effect, which I think has been skewed by fast fashion because now the fashion is so fast.
Sure.
That I have a couple different perspectives. Like, yes, there will always be trends. And you'll see a bunch of designers latch onto one trend at the same time. And you're like, how did they know that they were all going to be showing leopard this year? But like it all, they're all pulling, there's only limited sources of inspiration. Everything has been done before. So where does it come from, But the trickle down effect traditionally is like, I think a lot of the trends start in architecture. Wow. They start in art and then fashion's kind of the next. And you'll see it on the runway. And it might be a crazy thing. Like, I mean, people put nuts things down the runway. Some big amplified version of what it kind of Exactly. Yeah. But then that gets trickled down.
Like a huge bow that like covers half the body that you're not actually going to wear out. But
someone always sends a huge bow down the runway.
There's like got to be a bow.
There's got to be a bow. There's got to be like no face.
Yeah.
Like there's a lot of like just no face.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which I think is like a mannequin and like.
Yeah, there's a whole experience to that, I would imagine. Okay.
But so it trickles down. And then eventually you see these things at Target or you see them at Old Navy. That was one of the big lessons that I walked away from that company with is it was fashion. It was democratic fashion. So it was fashion for everyone. We were looking at the same runways, the same sources of inspiration that we were when I was at Anthropologie. And although we were designing $39 shoes or $29 shoes versus $120, it was the same look. Like everyone wants to play in this game. Everyone wants to have something fashionable and trendy to wear. So how do we give it to the public and make it accessible for everyone? To jump on that trend. So you don't have to break the bank. You can get the lesser expensive. You can get the Bobo Jordans. You can get the Amazon trends. But they're becoming so fast that it's like skewing things a little bit.
Interesting.
Wow. Thinking about art holistically rather than categorically it's very important, obviously. I don't know that it's always thought about so holistically. And so the way you were just explaining that there's like this kind of matrix almost of there's the architectural universe and then there's art in the like painting kind of sense of art and other mediums that are similar in nature, like digital art. And then there's fashion as art. And now I'm like, well, where else does that kind of manifest itself into? Like, I think about how a lot of my design recently has really been inspired by Art Deco.
Exactly, yeah.
And I mean, you even saw on the posters, I brought some Art Deco into that. And I'm like so here for Art Deco right now because Art Deco is really hot in the interior design universe. And we were up in Lake Louise and then over in Banff and like the two hotels had like incredible just Art Deco everything. I mean, the interior was just so stunning and I was so inspired by it. And like, I mean, immediately one of the projects that I was working on, I brought Art Deco style fonts into it and like visual identity. And I was just like totally stoked about it. And I thought about it from my kind of tiny little universe, but you get to see it in so many different mediums and more holistically.
And
like,
what would be cool?
Where else does this like kind of manifest itself?
Everywhere. Like the bottle design comes from, like we could scrutinize the bottles on the bar and look at where the inspiration came from each one of those. Like the one that has the top, I don't know what that's called, but that came from that, probably like a Italian way to preserve olive oil. And they were like, oh, well, let's throw it on everything is design. Like everything is design.
Yes, come on. That's what I'm talking about.
And what would be cool, like you and I could work from the same inspiration. We could look at the same inspiration board. Yeah. And I could go design a shoe from it. And you could go design a whiskey game bottle. Or a platform or a whiskey bottle or something from it.
I want to design a whiskey bottle. That sounds like a great idea.
Let's design a whiskey bottle. Limited edition.
Llani and Curiosity mashup whiskey bottle.
Love it.
I feel like it's happening.
Boom. Yeah.
And the whiskey.
Yes.
Itself, because I want to make a whiskey.
And it'll be unfiltered.
Yeah. Obviously, we're going to have unfiltered whiskey.
We know nothing about, I know nothing about distilling whiskey.
Same. And I know less. Well, there's some things that like I really just want to know, like from like your. I want to ask like a few questions like why shoes.
You cannot ask questions on curiosity. That is not an option.
I got too many. I got to get them out.
I love it.
Like the inspiration, like you mentioned India and like spending time there and kind of what that like. Can you just describe like your first time on the ground in India and like what were like some of the things that like in like that initial like spark or trigger that you were just like looking around and you've coming from a place where you had looked at design boards and art and architecture and had kind of seen it, like what was coming new to the table from that initial experience?
Sure.
That still kind of resonates.
I'll never forget. It was actually, I was really young and I was working for Anthro and I think I was 22, 23. Okay. And I was just dying to travel, like I was seeing all of my, the people kind of above me, 1 tier, 2 tiers above me, they were traveling and like, I had the itch so bad, but I just like wasn't there yet. But unfortunately my boss who I had raved about earlier, who was my mentor, he left the company and kind of much of the design role fell into my lap. And it was actually a slipper program that we were designing for holiday. And it at the time was being produced in China. And I wasn't heading the project, but I had inherited the project. And I just was not happy. Like we were using synthetic materials. We were using like a market fabric, which is something, this is a whole other thing, but like these fabric mills in China, India, Spain, they exist everywhere. And they'll make several articles a year. And sometimes if you really pay attention, you'll be able to see the same article all over. So it's not proprietary unless you develop your own, which is very expensive. So you have to buy a market material, but they're less special. They're not that special. They have to be used sometimes, and some of them are so commodity that you don't really notice. But like every once in a while, you're like, I've seen that before. And it existed at this brand, or I saw it at this store, or I saw this collection include it. And I was just kind of sick of seeing those things. Like we were Anthropologie, we're supposed to be full of whimsy. We're supposed to be, surprising and delighting our customer. Like we need something unique. And I wasn't satisfied that we were using synthetic materials either at the time.
Synthetic would be what you mentioned versus custom? Is that the way to
synthetic meaning like faux fur.
Like nylon.
Okay.
Nylon,
like
yeah. And it's all made from plastic.
Got it.
Or petroleum. And like
So like literally synthetic. Okay.
Exactly.
Check.
And this is a whole argument to have because I totally understand and respect people's values. And if you don't want to wear leather, I totally support that. But like, we got to do that better because
it's great to have ideals, but function and form both matter.
Yeah.
We can't just have one without the other.
Exactly.
Because if we do, it's not going to be the quality that it needs to be. And so that's great that you have this ideal, but then we need to come up with an option through ingenuity that's going to match the quality.
And to me, and it's
a great point.
Like fashion is hard. Like we never use the term sustainable because it scares me. And if you're creating a new product, is it really sustainable? But I think for us, at least, the most sustainable practice is to use leather that's a byproduct. So that's what we do.
Okay.
So anyway, we were designing this program and it was in China and I just felt in my heart that this wasn't right and I didn't want to put my name on it. So I went to the creative director at the time, who was an executive, and I just told her, like, listen, this whole project needs to be scrapped. I need to go to India. I need to design a new program. Here's what it's going to cost us, but like, here's how beautiful everything could look. We're going to use leathers. We're going to use our own techniques. We're going to do hand embellishment. We're going to do shearling and suede and leather. And she supported it. So it's
absolutely
really interesting.
And that's why you support dope females.
Exactly.
That's it.
That's
it. Amazing.
And it was an amazing feeling because it was like one of my first trips with the corporate company. But I felt this like this program was so important because it's holiday. You're giving it as a gift. You want it to be the best product that it can be. And actually that's what started Llani years after that, probably, I guess, 4 years after that program. That's how I conceptualized Llani too, because those beautiful handcrafted, genuine material shoes that feel like home were not in the market from anywhere else.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what
created kind of a new category.
Exactly.
Okay, exactly. So, I mean, like, oh my gosh, I'm like so fascinated right now. So the role of travel, we talked about different mediums and spaces where we're inspired, right? Like to your point, travel is a really cool one. And I think that it's something that like, as all of us, like the more we travel, I feel like the more exposed we are. I mean, when I talk about creativity a lot with people, one of the things that I say is one of the fundamental factors of creativity is exposure. The more exposure you have to humanity and to society and to nature and just to culture. Yeah. All of those like beautiful elements that make up a society and seeing them in different parts of the world, it just, it fundamentally reshapes you as a human. And it plays such, I think, this beautiful influence in how we, through exposure, are more creative and more curious. Like you could synonymously say we're far more curious when we explore. I mean, I can't tell you how many times, I've never admitted this, but when Sky and I have traveled somewhere that I have had this total orthodoxy in my brain, knew nothing about it, had never been there in my life, but I had some total orthodoxy in my brain made up, and my mind was made up that this is how this experience was going to be. And I get there and it's like fundamentally different. And I don't know why my brain does that. I try so hard to not let it go there. I mean, I meditate a ton. So I try through meditation before we travel to like, just be like totally clear mind and have clarity and just be present and not have an expectation. But my default mechanism, I just naturally go to like, I have my mind made up on how this is going to be. And I love every time it's always just obliterated as it should be. But it's like so beautiful to actually, now you've had that experience. So you have like real like proof points that you can pull in to help your brain shape it differently.
When you're saying you have your mind made up, because I kind of like, I want to see what you say, but is it a visual, like, are you picturing it?
Yeah,
like, is
totally.
it a movie in your head, or is it a narrative, or is it both?
Oh, it's like, it's both. Plus, like, I feel like all the senses.
Yeah.
Like in my mind, like all of my senses already have it's an expectation, I guess is the way to say it. I already have this expectation in my mind of what this should be like.
Yeah.
Which I don't know why.
Well, I think
like maybe it's excitement or something.
You're a creative, and like, I've never really thought about this before, but I do the exact same thing. Like before I got to Houston, I was imagining what it would be like to be in this room with you guys. Look nothing like this. This has exceeded what I had in my imagination. But it's like I almost have to visualize.
That mean we're kind of almost legit?
You visualize the trip because I think you're thinking about what you're going to see.
Yeah.
And you're almost creating that movie, that
'cause you're like excited
maybe in your head. I think it's excitement. I think it's like expectations. I think it's the human instinct of planning and preparation.
And that's, I think there's a little bit of like kind of like
curbs
type
nervousness.
A, like you want to like be prepared. And,
well, and I think it also curbs like what otherwise it's the
I'm far from honestly, type A, so I don't know if it's that.
I think exactly what it is whenever we're on the edge of the universe, kind of look, peeking over the edge to the abyss of the unknown. That's that kind of chaotic ambiguity of our own brains. And that's an uncomfortable place for our mind to be, because we always want to have some narrative formed in our minds about something that we think is going to actually be reality. Mm-hmm. And then that helps us form expectation, which makes us more comfortable going into an unknown situation or scenario.
Yeah.
That's probably why we do that.
You're trying to build the connectivity from like a state of known and comfort.
Yeah, you want to go from unknown to known, even if it's a fabricated version of known. At least gives you a peace of mind going into it.
And nothing can truly be known until you know it. So that's the crazy thing is, as you asked, like with India, like I can't even remember what the idea of that experience was in my head before I got there. Yeah. But I know that I had never experienced anything like it. Like the vibe, the pulse of Delhi, the smells, the visceral experience, the colors. Like I was just immediately, like
you're seeing it through the lens of like a designer, like you're sort of like seeing a shoe come together as you're like walking through like the markets.
Yeah, you should see. I mean, my camera roll is just loaded with everything from women wearing saris on the back of a motorbike holding their baby with their whole entire family, and everyone is just drenched in color, and it's so absolutely
I've spent a little bit of time scrolling through your Instagram or like something like, and so there is like this distinct like combination of things, like sort of after like seeing like pictures of like the things that are out there, it's like there's like there's this connectivity to it, but it's like it's kind of it's a bit of an origin story. It's like what was like the thing, or it's just like you just have like this image in your mind and you go back to India on occasion and like kind of reinforce that and adjust.
It's a lot of the things. So now
kind of like what words would you use to describe like the personality of the brand?
Sure. And like going back to your first question, it's about the design process. What I probably never went back to say is that now I hardly design when I'm not in India. So we are a slow fashion brand. So we're kind of we're identifying key silhouettes that work for us, and then we're reinventing those key silhouettes in new materials every season. So instead of, reinventing the wheel every season with new silhouettes, we'll do our tried and true silhouettes and then fabricate them in a different way. So some of our core materials are, suede that we do a foil printing. We do block printed leather, which is a really, really cool technique that I don't think anyone else is doing, and I want to make it ours.
Super cool.
We use hair calf, which is what I'm wearing. I can't put my leg up here, but I can put my shoes up here.
Okay, love it.
So this is cow or goat hide that's printed. No giraffes were hurt in the making of these shoes. So we have a couple different things, and then we do hand embellishment. Okay. So when I was, working for corporations, or when I started Llani and I couldn't afford my first India trip or development trip, I would sit in my office and I would try to design things, and I'd come up with some good ideas. But then when I would get to India, it would always change because I would see something that was so much more amazing than I couldn't have envisioned from my office in New Jersey, like just being there. And I'm literally, when I'm in the factories, I'm looking at the people that are the skilled artisans that are doing these techniques by hand. They're building the shoes by hand. The leather or the fabric is being printed by hand or on a silk screen. And it's just like seeing the process. Like I want the process to inform the product.
Yeah.
Because if you don't do that, you can really spin your wheels so often, like to get something that you won't get, instead of like really leaning in to the techniques that are already
kind of tried and true.
Exactly. And we do try to like uphold traditional Indian techniques too. Like there's a couple techniques that we use that are actually dying crafts in India because they're just not in demand because, a lot of people in India want the Western wear and, it's not as in demand. So we try to keep a lot of those techniques alive as well.
What are those? Like, what are some examples?
So one of my favorite ones is dabka work. And it's actually gold, like metal thread that's wrapped around like a needle to create a coil. And then that's actually sewn on. So you'll see it tonight on some of our shoes. Our smoking loafers I always try to put dabka in some, especially in our holiday collection, because it's very blingy. It's absolutely gorgeous. And it's just such a fine technique, but we have a hard time finding people that even do it anymore.
Wow. So you can, maybe that's a part of that economic simulation aspect too, is like upskilling and reskilling, taking some of that knowledge and transferring it to younger humans who could have that craft. Like there is this kind of conversation of like fast fashion and slow fashion. And so I really want to lean into that for a moment with the audience, because there really is an opportunity to fill the gap in knowledge and understanding. Because I think a lot of times people go to fast fashion because it's less expensive and you want to look nice and feel good about yourself, but you also want to be a good steward of your financial resources and not overconsume. And so how does a consumer, an everyday human, like balance that? And like, what's the value proposition?
Like, what
what's the value proposition?
It's balance.
Okay.
And I know, like, I have a lot of friends in the industry that have sworn off fast fashion. I haven't, but I have been more conscious about it.
Yeah.
So I definitely try to consume less of the lower price points.
Okay.
And when they are a lower price point, I do it consciously. So actually the dress that I'm wearing right now is a Target dress.
It's very cool. I was actually admiring the sleeves and how the sleeves are constructed.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can say it's fucking cool.
You can say whatever your heart desires.
It's fucking cool.
Yeah.
And
there's no limitations on curiosity.
And I'm not going to not buy it because it's cheap.
Yeah.
But I did think about it and I'm like, this is a cheap dress.
Yeah.
But it's amazing.
Yes.
It's gonna look great.
Yeah.
I'm gonna wear it with my boots, which are not cheap and not disposable.
Okay.
And nothing
I like
should be
this.
disposable. We recycle.
Yeah.
There's a
We do not
period of
dispose,
time,
we recycle.
like there's
Huh.
like, so I
I
sort of
love
joke, like,
that answer.
for a long time,
Balance.
like dress shoes and sport coats was like where I put more of the dollars.
Yes.
And I was wearing Costco slacks.
Yes, exactly.
And I would get them like tailored or like brought
That's
in
smart,
or whatever.
too. Tailoring the
kind of like the less
expensive.
expensive. They're like for $17, you tailor them for 10.
Exactly.
But like nobody notices when like you've got like a decent like Joe Banker, Bradbury Brothers or whatever. That's not what's the
Brooke Brothers.
Brooke Brothers, yeah. I was like, Bradbury Brothers. I never heard of that.
I was like, wow, you're so exclusive.
Really high end.
You're so fancy.
That's an HVAC repair company, just so we're clear. I see their vans cruising around my
Shout out
neighborhood
to
all the
Bradley
time.
Brothers.
Yeah,
They will
exactly.
sponsor.
We'll just trim that gaff out.
They're definitely sponsoring the next episode.
But like Justin
they said our
Murphy
name on their
shoes
podcast.
or, you know, like these kinds of things. So like, I feel like there's like, you know, I always thought that it was like a pretty smart thing to do of like, nobody's going to notice. Like,
No,
but like shoes, like people notice shoes. So like I'll invest in the shoe.
They've named this.
What?
It's called the high-low.
Okay.
Stop it. Of course.
So this is a whole influencer. This is a whole influencer
what
scheme is the high-low.
Oh, man.
So you have your, and I don't subscribe to designer bags, but I totally understand.
Yeah, like you have your like bags, so Chanel bag or your Louis bag or whatever.
And you're wearing your Target dress.
Yeah.
And you have your nice Llani boots and you have your designer bag and you wear your Target dress.
Yeah.
You know, it's the high-low mix. And I think that's actually, let's normalize the high-low mix.
I do love it.
It's brilliant.
I missed my opportunity to be
balance.
like a high-low, like
well, you've been doing it all
corporate
along.
influencer.
You were instinctively doing it because you knew the right way to put
it just
your look
seemed
together.
Logical to me.
Exactly.
It's coming at it from like a logic standpoint.
Logical fashion.
Yeah.
That's it. I mean, so balance, right? And if we even build on that a little bit, there's a balance from an economic stimulation perspective of job creation where fast fashion is creating a lot of jobs and giving people access to positions where they can, you know, create in a different way, but still there's opportunity there. And slow fashion is equally doing that as well. And it's, you know, we want to be mindful of our smaller entities and organizations and companies and those Main Street businesses, because obviously we need to support those. I mean, one of the things I know we talked about last episode and we're all being more mindful of is not only just supporting those, but we need to support it from a diversity, equity, and inclusion perspective as well. We need to support, Black, Brown, Latin businesses. We need to support female-owned businesses and really be mindful about the power of our dollars and how and where they need to go. So that's one element that's like no brainer, 100%. We're all here for it. I think the other aspect is there is still a value proposition in Target employs lots of people. And yes, I mean, arguably, there's not enough of us that are going to stop shopping at Target that are going to have a huge impact on Target, but there's enough of us that could stop shopping small that could have an impact on a small business. But at the same time, it could happen. And so I think the balance, there's actually a benefit to the balance as well from more equal opportunity in economic stimulation by kind of diversifying that portfolio and finding which things we should purchase at the big brands and which things we should purchase at the small
and I think
companies.
Putting some pressure on the big companies to do better too.
Okay.
Because if you do,
all big brands, this is an opportunity. Like Public we are giving you a challenge. Step up. Yeah. Let's go.
The fashion industry.
What does it mean to step up?
Well, the fashion industry can get real ugly real fast.
Okay.
Like, I mean, I personally, even working for Gap Inc. and Old Navy, I personally have never been I've been in many, many hundreds of factories. I've never seen any practices that I didn't agree with. So I'm just going to say that. But they do exist in the world. And just because I haven't seen them doesn't mean that they don't exist. There are plenty, and just overconsumption. Another thing that I do that you guys, I think it's coming for y'all males is renting.
We just had a y'all.
Sure.
Renting. I know, it was my first one.
I'm so proud of you.
Was it awkward?
It landed. Good work.
It felt natural.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Yeah. Great. Try to work another one in. But renting.
Maybe 10.
I've been a Rent the Runway subscriber for like 6 years.
So
and
it's coming to their membership. Mel space.
And it's great because, like I like to express myself. I like to have something different to wear. I do a lot of public appearances, but, events. And
you hang out with Donna Karen on the weekends in the Hamptons.
Just saying.
So there's that.
It's just amazing to have. It is a almost not a zero waste, but a less wasteful practice.
That's true. Like I mean, those products are already out there.
Yeah.
And so, so that was another part of where my Neurostorm was going. Very big fan of the Prada installation just outside of Marfa, Texas. I think it's such a beautiful expression. That's one of the photos that we had in the desert-inspired space. You may or may not have seen it.
Oh, I didn't see it.
At the house. And I think it's such a beautiful expression of overconsumption. And from how I understand the story, Prada was actually supportive of it and donated and gave the products because they equally want consumers to be mindful of overconsumption. And so I think there's this kind of orthodoxy that exists amongst consumer populations. At least I've heard people say this kind of blanket statement of like, all fashion is overconsumption. And, like they don't care about the environment. And there's always this like I want a t-shirt that's like, who is this they? Because it doesn't matter what industry I'm around. There's always a they that everyone likes to blame.
For sure.
It makes me laugh so hard. It makes me chuckle. Yeah, there is some they out there that apparently is this horrible villain. Like, no, I don't think so, but maybe who knows? And when I was out there, it was so beautiful and it was such a great expression. And what was neat from how I understand, the artist had initially designed it to decompose over time. And so like whatever happened. And so like it was vandalized and all the products were stolen out. And the artist apparently was like, and it's like a living exhibit. So whatever happens. And that's all the expression of the point of view here. Like, and so, think about the inequity just from those that were stealing, et cetera, and like probably a need to have these things or a need to take them and resell them, whatever it might be. Now I believe it's all like right-footed or all left-footed shoes and they're like drilled in and all the bottoms of the purses are cut out because they redonated again and they're like probably not twice. But the reason that they ended up keeping it, there was a coalition from like Marfa artists who came together and asked him if he would be okay with kind of putting that part aside, which is hard as an artist because that was his whole point of view. And like, kind of recreate it and let it be permanent because it's actually such a great expression. And now there's obviously the Target one and the Chick-fil-A one, and there's a number of them that exist. But I get really excited about the idea that fashion does feel a responsibility to sustainability in some capacity. And just from a financial perspective, like there's not this desire that you're constantly over consuming. That's kind of the responsibility of the individual consumer to balance that, I would believe. That's my assumption. So I would like you to validate or invalidate that.
Yeah. And for a minute, Please. I actually didn't know about the artist wanting that installation to decompose over time. But think about the image of like an abandoned Prada.
Yeah. I think that's where he was going.
Falling apart. And like no one has been there. And you see that around the city, you know, like you see that, I'm sure here we see it in Philly with some restaurant that used to be the hot spot. And now it's just completely sat empty and been vandalized. And, you know, and it's like, oh my gosh, I remember going there and that was like the place, you know, like that's crazy.
Well, I want to pivot hard. And I just want to ask,
pivot back to where we were.
Why shoes? Like, where did that start?
So I studied fashion design, which was mostly apparel. And I went to a small all-women's art school in Philadelphia called Moore College of Art. And it was amazing. I made lifelong relationships. Some of my best friends I met there. Really cool place and still very involved in the school. But we had to sew our asses off. And I left my senior, you know, I graduated and I never wanted to sew another stitch. I didn't care about fabric. I was a bit bored by the clothing design process, you know, like I just wasn't feeling it. I had, you know, had such a, like, I'm so passionate about design and about style, but I just like, for some reason, I wasn't feeling connected to apparel. And I thought that meant that I was going down the wrong path or something. So I thought maybe I would go into styling or creative direction or something. But I was interning at Anthropologie at the time. And the mentor that I had previously mentioned, he had just been hired to design the shoes for this smaller offshoot private label brand we were working for. And I had to stay late to help him make copies. And I saw his sketches and I saw his materials. And the collection was being made in Brazil at the time. My husband's Brazilian, so I always kind of had like interesting like romanticization of the Brazilian culture also.
Sure. There's probably a whole lot. I used to live in Brazil for a bit.
Did you? Where?
Portuguese in Sao Paulo.
Oh my
gosh. There's probably a whole like thread we could spin off on, but I want to hear
It can't be in Portuguese because I can only say one thing.
No, that's okay.
After 13 years together, I can only say vamos para praia.
That's a great phrase. Yeah, of course.
Can we translate that for the rest of us who don't speak Portuguese?
Let's go to the beach.
Thank you. Yes, please, let's do that. Sounds great.
So he was working, first of all, his designs were so gorgeous. I mean, sculptural heels, like the most beautiful heels. They're still in my closet and I worship them. They're absolutely gorgeous. But he was working with stingray. He was working with python. He was working with feathers and beads and like.
And these were at Anthropologie.
These were a brand called Leaf's Daughter, which was a temporary offshoot that was like higher end.
Okay, so not sold in Anthropologie, kind of like Free People.
Exactly.
Okay, got it.
So you know, they were more expensive.
Oh wow!
But they were just so. I was like geeking out, and
materials and the structural shape and
like just the fact that like there was a parameter that you had to work around. I think that like, you know, shapes have to fit a body, but like shoes have a whole other challenge because they have to hold you up and support you all day and be comfortable enough to run around a city in.
You got ergonomics in a way.
Exactly. That, like, and I think I was like really fascinated by that. So I don't know. It was like that one pivotal moment. And I was just like, this is what I want to do. Like this is it.
Just like see it. And it's just incredible. Like everything slows down and it comes into focus.
Exactly.
And like just fell.
So will Llani move into men's shoes?
You know, men have been asking for a long time because we do these wonderful. Have you seen our moccasins?
I want to.
The moccasins.
Will they be there this evening?
They will.
Great.
I wish I had them for you because you just
too.
Need to put your hand inside and feel the cozy comfort of our genuine Australian shearling and our memory foam footbed.
I mean, I might just buy a pair of women's moccasins at this point. You just sold those so hard. I'm like, yes, please. I'll take 5 pairs.
I think that like we do still have some expansion, but I'm thinking that for some holiday season, we will have a men's pair.
Kind of a limited run or something.
Like a limited run just for the holidays, run of 100 or something.
Yeah. But you want to stick with more female fashion.
I mean, I'm a girly girl. Like I just feel the female element to my core. And I think so much of what we do is glitzy and glamorous. And not that men can't wear it. We have expanded to size 42.
I mean, I do have flower hand embroidered shoes from Taft. So I am here for, I mean, I'm also, you know, all about like gender, I don't know what the right word is, but like the kind of like transition between men's fashion and women's fashion. There's many things about women's fashion that inspire my outfits often. And I think like there's kind of this like stereotype that like must be male or must be female. That's what I was trying to say, like gender stereotype. And if I could, like, I'm not a huge fan of that.
So one of our key silhouettes is a babouche. So it's a play on like a Moroccan babouche, which is like a Moroccan house shoe.
Yeah.
And you had mentioned slides earlier. A lot of our shoes are slides.
Oh, I have a fun pair of slippers that are made in Ecuador. Yeah. Handmade. And that's what I wear around the house.
Are they the woven ones?
I'll show them to you today.
Yeah, like a Huarache.
I don't know what they are, but they're freaking comfortable and I love them. Yeah. And they're very stylish.
Yeah. Yeah, you're gonna have to try some stuff
on. You know what? I will.
I'm sad to miss it.
Yeah.
I know.
I'm
send
sad me pictures.
Well, you do have the opening of two of your girls who are.
Well, I do, and I actually like want to. Because you mentioned your Brazilian husband. You've got a daughter.
Yes.
I want to ask just about like the beautiful experience of like balancing all these cool, awesome things that you're working on and
being
like
a founder family.
Yeah,
like,
that
that's
founder
badass.
family. Like, do you like? And so I kind of want to ask it in like it's like a broad question. Like, what are like I'm going to say it this way. What's your coping mechanism for like working through that? Do you have like a space? Is it like an activity that you like to do? Is it like what keeps like you level-headed and sane like as you go through that?
I think that I really love this brand. Like I love this company so much. I love the people that it's brought me to. Yeah. I love my team that's in India. I love what we create. I love our customers. I get to create everything in my home, which is amazing. You know, my husband's super supportive of, you know, me. Sometimes Llani literally consumes our entire house and spills over into the sunroom and the kitchen and the guest room and my office is right at the center of our house. But I just love it. Like I love our products. I'm so proud of them. I'm so proud of the people that make them and bring them to life with me. And I just love it. Like I live and breathe it. And not to say that it's not hard and not to say that I don't get completely stressed out because I do. But I also love it. And I love that, like, I hope that I haven't influenced her too much, but my daughter now will be like, that's a Llani shoe. And she says, Mommy, when I grow up, I want to run your company. And I'm like, oh my gosh.
Wow. That's
and
so
just
special.
The fact that we
How
can,
old is your
like,
daughter?
She's 4.
Oh my gosh. That's adorable.
She might be regurgitating something that I said before, but
when you grow up, you're going to run Mommy's company. I'm just going to tell you this subliminally a lot and literally a lot.
But like, I just like our customers, the women that find our brand, like it brings them joy. It sparks joy. It brings me joy. Like it's happy. It's optimistic. It's beautiful. It's lush. It's luxurious. It's comfy. It's cozy. It's easy. Like, it's all of the things. And I just absolutely love that. So I think it does lift me up when the times are tough and, you know, that I'll open up Instagram and scroll and someone's like, oh my gosh, this is the most beautiful pair of shoes I've ever seen. I need to have them. And then a sale comes through and I hear the cha-ching and I'm like, thank God. We did it.
You just need that like for, you're going to live off that for like months, right? Exactly. Like it's just like that.
Exactly. So it's like those little dopamine hits are probably my coping mechanism, you know, the positive feedback, positive reinforcement. And
finding that intersection of like passion and career is such like a journey for so many people. And so to have like built that and created that, that's like the entrepreneur's dream is like to be able to build the world that doesn't exist that you want to exist.
Yeah.
And so you're living that.
Yeah. You really build the life that you love. I think that's so incredible. So from that creative lens and perspective, right? Like, I mean, a moment in time where you're in a space and you're in the midst of creating, what are some of the kind of interesting aspects that you're mindful of? What are some of the factors that like excite you? And I think like part of where this is stemming from is just, thinking about creating and how taking an idea and bringing that to life, like, I mean, that's a very fulfilling experience. And it's very vulnerable to be a creator. And so how do you balance that vulnerability with that ambition?
Again, like probably the dopamine hits help. And, I think like there's some products that we're making right now that are so interesting. Like you'll see tonight, we have these amazing silk kantha pieces. They're actually upcycled from old saris. So they're saris that women have worn and have donated. And then they're hand stitched by female home workers that are, taking care of their kids and cooking and feeding their families. And all the while they're stitching these beautiful silks together. Not only were the saris pre-loved by another woman, but they were also hand printed by someone. So that's 3 lives that this piece has touched. Then the factory that we work with, they drive by motorbike to go pick up these hand-stitched recycled saris, bring them back to their workshop in Jaipur, and then make these jackets that I designed along with them.
Oh my gosh.
And now they're here in Houston.
Wow.
Or, online.
Incredible.
And now another woman or man is going to buy them and wear them and love them. And like, there's so many layers of lives touched by the creation of this one thing.
Yes.
But it's not just the one thing, it's the many things. Like this woman could have worn this sari the day she got engaged or the day she got married or the day her daughter got married or to someone's funeral or to some important graduation. And now that's being re-existing, it's like, it's vintage, it's upcycled, it's sustainable. That is truly sustainable. Yeah. And then it can just, it's given a whole other life now. And when I look at them, like they're so gorgeous, they're so bold, they're so saturated, they're a mix of prints, but the texture, like I can literally feel the soul when I hold these pieces. And they're silk. And they're
just distinctive. That's amazing. I mean, I just want, as we wrap up, like I think we want to ask like another kind of question or two, but certainly one that I want to make sure that we ask is like, what's next for Llani? Like, what is like what's on the horizon? Like, what are the things that you're kind of thinking about? But I know, Brad, you had a follow up.
Yeah, just really a thought. I mean, it was just so beautiful hearing that story and you kind of like narrate over that. I mean, it's almost like with slow fashion, you get, especially when it's sustainable, slow fashion that's upcycled, like you get the privilege and the opportunity to wear other stories and bring other stories into the present moment and create new stories. And then you could then upcycle those items and another human could wear another human story and create new stories just by the clothing that they're wearing or the shoes that are on their feet or the accessories that they're carrying. I mean, Scott, you talk a lot about being like what's your echo?
Yeah.
And there's like this beautiful echo that comes from that because it's almost like there's more intentionality and meaning potentially in slow fashion. And not say you can't have that in fast fashion because you absolutely could, but there's a level of, at least the way I perceive it, and again, I could be totally wrong. The way I perceive it is I feel an authenticity with getting to know a creator and then wearing something that they created, as opposed to just walking into a big brand.
Totally.
It's not the same experience.
There's a story and distinctiveness to it.
Like, I actually have an entire theory that at some point we're going to move away from malls and we're going to go to boutiques far more regularly than what we see today.
I think that's happening.
And it's already happening.
Yeah.
And I've had this thought for a few years, but it's absolutely happening and it needs to happen because I think that the pendulum always swings and shifts and changes, and 100 years from now, some people are going to go have this brilliant idea. Let's have these big malls, but like, and it's going to be awesome. And so it's not like an us versus them. It's more of just like a one-on-one human interaction is a beautiful thing. And what you're creating gives people space to have that beautiful one-on-one interaction. Like that means something. That's important.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's why like makers markets are so big. Like shopping small is such a movement. There's beautiful stores like Fourth and Nomad, which we will be hosting a pop-up tomorrow on Yale Street here in Houston. Such an amazing space that has so many local artisans, local makers, and just beautiful, beautiful product. Like there is just an overflow of creativity. And, you know, I think it's been ignited the last couple of years. And you could chalk it up to, you know, platforms like Instagram or Shopify or, you know, now that these creators can put something out and have it be seen by the world.
Yeah. Get to scale faster and help to sort of fuel that.
Exactly.
So how do people find Llani? Where do they go?
We are on Instagram as Llani.shop, LLANI.shop.
Okay.
Or you
we'll
can
put it in the show notes.
Yep.
Yes.
Go to our website, Llani.shop. You can see us in Houston.
Yes.
And I don't know, you said what's next for Llani. We're working on a lot of stuff. We have exclusive collaborations with Anthropologie and Free People. We are expanding into apparel. We're working on more beautiful product, and we're going to take Llani on the road and be in more cities soon.
So amazing.
There's going to be men's shoes in the future.
Yeah, they're coming.
At least a exclusive collection. It's going to be great.
A curious collection.
A curious collection.
A curious collection, or a curiosity collection, which will also be the whiskey collaboration between Llani and Curiosity. It's going to be beautiful.
We've got a workshop.
We love to close out every episode with a big, beautiful question. I think I have one, and we can all have one. But
Let's hear it.
I think one came to me. It's never pre-planned. It has to happen during the episode. Here we go.
I'm ready, Brad.
So, how will your next travels inspire you? And then how will you take that inspiration and create something with it?
Call to action.
Okay.
Not just a
I doubled
thought
down
exercise.
No, I doubled down today.
Next time you're out of your
action.
home, wherever you are.
Yeah. Preferably traveling
look
somewhere
around
magical.
deliberately and apply it back into something that you're working on.
Yeah. Like take that energy from the universe and
it raises one of my favorite
it
quotes
back in the universe.
Don't travel just to see a foreign land, but to see your home country as a foreign land.
Oh, I love that.
And like going out and seeing, find something that's different. So what's different as you travel?
Mm-hmm.
How do we feel? Is that a good?
Yeah, I think that's great.
All right.
It's not up to me though. Like Alana, you approve?
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Gauntlet thrown. Alana, thank you for being on the show. It's been
thank you for having me, guys. This is awesome. This was great.
This is everything. I'm so excited. Amazing episode.
Yeah.
I'm so ready to go buy some shoes. Boom.
Can't wait.
Boom.
Boom.
Thank you for listening. Join Brad and Scott next time on the Curiosity Podcast.